So here's the notes for the lesson that we would have learned today. It's using SOHCAHTOA still. It's going to be an important part of the lesson, but it's using it a different way. We're actually going to use it to find the side of a triangle. So the first step that you have to do, the steps are right here in this box right here, nicely laid out for you, is you have to label each of the sides from looking at the angle. So if I look at my angle here, I know that 10, since it's across from the right angle, is the hypotenuse. I'm going to put an H there. And then since X is all the way across from it, I'm going to put an O for opposite. Those are the only two sides you're going to label, is the ones that have something written on it. That is going to tell you, if you look at SOHCAHTOA, which one to use. Since it has O and H, this is going to be a SO problem. So then step 3 is going to help you to set up the equation. You're going to start with whatever trig function we're using, whether it's sine, cosine, or tangent. The S tells me that we're going to use sine. So it's going to be the sine of the angle comes next, 32, equals a number over the number. To decide what order to put those in, you have to look at the order of O and H. We have to put the O part, which was X, on top, and the H part, which was 10, on the bottom. Then your next step is to solve this. In order to solve this, you have to think about what you want to do to get X by itself. Since we're dividing by 10, the operation I do to get rid of 10 is I multiply by 10. And then this whole side, you're going to type in your calculator, and it will give you the answer. The sine, cosine, and tangent buttons you will find in the middle of your calculator. Again, those of you that don't have an approved calculator, this section is not going to work for you, so you need to secure a calculator this weekend. But you just type this in your calculator, and it should give you an answer of X equals 5.3. We're just going to round to the nearest tenth. So please make sure you take a calculator out and try this as we're looking through this lesson to make sure you know what you're doing on the calculator part of it. So for the next part, I'm just going to practice a couple of these. Hopefully watching them a couple of times will give you a handle on it. You're going to look from that given angle. You're going to label the side. So X is across from it. That means it's the opposite. And 5 is next to it, but not the hypotenuse. So that means it's the adjacent. The next step then is to look at the phrase SOHCAHTOA and figure out which one has O and A in it. TOA is the one that has O and A in it. So that tells me we're going to use tangent. So we're going to write down tangent. Then after tangent always comes the angle that's in the picture. So the angle is 26 degrees. Equal to, we have to follow the order that it says here for my fraction. It has to be O, which is X, over A, which is 5. And then your last step is to figure out what you're going to do to solve for X. For this problem, since the 5 is on the bottom, we just multiply by 5. And that is what I type in my calculator. So you have to take out your calculator, type in 5 times, hit the tangent buttons. It's right in the middle above the number 7, 8, and 9. And then type in 26 degrees, and it should give you 2.4 as your answer. Make sure you can do that on your calculator. Check it, please. Let's try another one. So again, the process is the same for all of these. We're looking at the angle, and we're going to label the sides according to what we see here. So the first thing I look for is that right angle. Since this 12 is across from the right angle, that's going to be your hypotenuse. And then the other side is next to the 44, so that's going to be the adjacent. So if I think SOHCAHTOA, I'm looking for the one that has A and H in it, since we have A and H in the problem, and it's going to be CA. The C stands for cosine, so you have to write that down first. Then the angle comes next, 44. Equal to is always going to be equal to a fraction. You just have to put the parts in the right order. It's going to be X over 12. To get rid of the 12, we multiply both sides by 12. Type this in our calculator. We get X is equal to 8.6. Not every problem is going to set up like this. For instance, let's look at this next one. It's going to be a little bit different. The 38 is our angle, so if we label this as the hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle, and this is the opposite side, that tells me I'm going to think about, so right now, because I have O and H is in so, which means we're using sine. So then it'll be sine of 38 equal to, watch this part. It says I have to do O first, H second. So O was 8 and H was X. So I have to set those up properly. You got to make sure you're putting those in the right spot. O first, H second. So then this is different than the last one. The last one, the number was on the bottom. The number was on the bottom. This time the number's on the top. The X is on the bottom. So we have to think about what we're going to do here to remedy that. Technically there's some algebra you could do here, but I don't want to over-explain to you. So instead, I'm going to teach you a trick. And what we're going to do to solve this is it's called the magic elevator. We're going to flop these out. The X is going to go on the left side, and that whole sine 38 is going to switch with it. You have to keep that all together as a group. And that's what you're going to type in your calculator. When you type that in your calculator, you have to use the division key. You can't use the fraction button. So it's going to be 8 divided by the sine of 38. And that should give you that X is equal to 13.0 is what it rounds to. Let's look at another one like that. So looking from the 25, I'm again labeling. This one's across from it, so that's O. This one's across from the right angle, so that's H. So this is, again, O and H is a sine problem, so we're going to do so. It's going to be sine of 25 equals O is 4, and H is X. I have to put those in the right order. O over H. Again, we have this weird thing where the X is on the bottom. You're allowed to just flip the X over, and then it's going to be 4 over sine of 25. And this is what I'm typing in my calculator. Again, use the division key like I talked about in the last one. You should get that X is equal to 9.5. Number 6. This is the angle, which means this is the hypotenuse, and since the 6 is next door, that's the adjacent side. So that's A and H. A and H is in ka. So we're going to use cosine. Cosine of 43, the angle always comes next, equals, I have to follow the order. I have to put A on top and H on the bottom. So it's 6 over X. And again, when the X is on the bottom, we like to move it up. We don't like the X trapped on the bottom. We do the magic elevator. 6 divided by the cosine of 43. You type that part in your calculator using the division symbol, and you should get that X is equal to 8.2. If you haven't checked to make sure you can type these in your calculator, try one of them and make sure you can get the right answer before you have to do a practice problem. We're just going to go through a couple more examples. On this next page, they're going to kind of flip back and forth. I just want to make sure we've got. So these are now mixed together. So we have to decide based on where X is how we're going to solve it. So we're starting with the angle. We're labeling first. This is O, and this is A because it's next to it, which means if I think of SOHCAHTOA, notice I'm writing this down every time I have to do a problem. I would suggest that you write it down when you do the practice problems and when you do the homework. So since we have O and A is in TOA, which tells me I'm using tangent of the angles next 62 equal to, follow the order, O first 7 over A next X. These are just like the last problems with X on the bottom. We like to get that untrapped. We're using the magic elevator to move it up. And I'm going to have that X is equal to 7 stays where it was over the tangent of 62. If you type that in your calculator, you should get 3.7. Let's try this one. We're looking from the 40. From the 40, this is the hypotenuse because it's across from the right angle, and this is the opposite. So we're going to do sine because it's O and H is in so. So it's going to be sine of 42 is equal to, follow the order. It's going to change. Sometimes X is on top, sometimes it's on the bottom. This time the X has to come first because it's O and O comes first. So it's O first, H second. Then to get rid of the 20, this is different from the other problems we've been doing. If you notice, this is flipping. So this time the x is on top. When x is on top, we multiply by the 20 to move it to the other side. So then you're typing this part right here in your calculator, and you should get that x is equal to 12.9. Number 9, looking from this angle, this is O, this is A. So that tells me, if I look for O and A is in TOA, so we're going to do tangent. Tangent of 40 is equal to x first, 8 second, because x is O and 8 is A. We have to go in the right order. Again, the 8 is on the bottom. When the number's on the bottom, it's really easy just to move it to the other side by multiplying. So this example, you're going to multiply when the number's on the bottom. You type that in your calculator, and you get an answer of 6.7. Last one, and then I'm going to have you guys do a couple practice problems on class kick. So looking from this angle, this one is opposite. This one's across from the right angle. That's the hypotenuse. So we have O and H, which is in so. So tells me, the S tells me that I'm going to use what? Hopefully you said sine. Sine is always followed by what? Hopefully you said the angle. Sine is followed by the 25 equal to, I have to follow the order. I have to do the O part first, the H part second. So it's going to be 10 over x. This is one where x is trapped on the bottom. We don't like it when it's trapped. So we do the magic elevator to switch these out. X is equal to 10 over the sine of 25. We type that in our calculators, and we get an answer of 23.7. So I'm going to put a couple problems on class kick for you to work on, and I want you to try those. There's also going to be a homework assignment that I'm going to have you do and turn in digitally. It will be due before class starts on Monday. Look for the class code on Schoology and enjoy your weekend.